I want to learn about a recent study that analyses all the available evidence on how effective they actually are in children and adolescents. I've come to the country's oldest university, Oxford, to speak to the lead author.
Hi, nice to meet you. Welcome.
Professor Andrea Cipriani is a psychiatrist and researcher.
I guess the first thing I want to ask you is, how do we think these drugs are working? What are they doing inside the brain?
We have many antidepressants on the market. The most frequently prescribed are the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, the so-called SSRIs, and they work by increasing the level of this neurotransmitter called serotonin in the brain.
Professor Cipriani analysed every available study on 14 antidepressant drugs in young people.
Fluoxetine.
Sertraline.
We also have amitriptyline. And
comparing them with each other and with a sugar pill called a placebo.
So your question was not how do the drugs work, it was do the drugs work?
in real practice.
Teenagers' brains are not the same as adult brains. The connections between the different parts are in the process of being rewired, so the drugs could affect young people differently.
So what did you find?
We found that only fluoxetine, on average, was better than placebo.
Only one of all these 14 antidepressants was better than taking a sugar pill.
Yes.
This drug, these do not work any better than sugar pills. Imipramine, clomipramine, sertraline. But we know that 40% of young people in the UK on antidepressants are on sertraline. So why would that be?
I can think of possible reasons. One is it might be that people have tried fluoxetine and this is the second line option. Or also we have some pretty robust data that show that sertraline is one of the best antidepressants in adults, and so this may be derived by the literature from adults.
It seems that we're ignoring the fact that teenage brains are different from adults. And even with the drug that did prove on average more effective than a sugar pill, fluoxetine or Prozac, Dr. Cipriani found the quality of the evidence was low.
The precision or the uncertainty around the estimate is pretty big. So worst case scenario is basically no different from placebo, slightly better but not significantly. Best case scenario is a huge effect of fluoxetine.
It's reasonable to put a question mark there.
Yes, because you don't know when you start the treatment whether the person taking fluoxetine will respond.
That's just terrifying, isn't it? You seem to be totally deluded that we have this range of possible treatments, when actually we maybe only have one drug that on average creates any benefit. And even that one drug we're a bit uncertain about.
So I want to find out more about how they can affect young people.
Hello, Chris. Hi, come in.
Great to see
Nice
you.
to meet
Thanks
you.
for having me.
I heard about Sarah because she'd written about the dangers of antidepressants and her daughter Rachel's experience.
Is that her there?
Yeah.
Like Jess, Rachel found life at secondary school difficult.
When she sort of hit GCSE studies, she hit a big wall and she got very stressed.
After she started self-harming, Rachel was referred to the Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services, or CAMS.
When they first talked to us about medication, they told us about the suicide risk. So I was frightened from the beginning.
The first drug that Rachel was prescribed was fluoxetine, often known as Prozac.
Is that her diary?
This is copies of her diary, which is it's a little bit hard to read.
Rachel's medication history: severe reaction after about 2 weeks. Went off the charts.
She started to have violent thoughts, disturbing dreams.
Shaking severely. Nosebleeds.
She was shaking, her body was shaking, and the following night she tried to hang herself.
Rachel was immediately taken off the fluoxetine. But when she was still very low 9 months later, her doctors followed the guidelines and offered a different antidepressant. The one being taken by 40% of young people on SSRIs, including Jess. Sertraline.
I was worried because I knew about the reaction from the fluoxetine, and I knew this was medication from the same family of drugs. However, Rachel herself, who was by now 16, was hoping upon hope for something that would help her.
She wanted the sertraline. She wanted something.
Yes.
So
She wanted something to work.
she was
Yeah, she was
desperate.
desperate. I never actually believed she would do it.
Really?
But it was within 11 days of an increased dose of the sertraline that she took her own life.
I'm really sorry.
I don't have any anger or resentment towards the medical team because they were just following what they're supposed to do. You know, that it's all there in the nice pathways about what you're supposed to do if medication A fails and medication B, medication C. There was no malpractice. I think that the system is wrong. What happens when you get them to the doctor? They get pills.
Do you think you understood how dangerous it might be?
No.
Do you think we know all the dangers?
No, I don't think we do. No, I don't think we do. I don't think the doctors know. I don't think they would prescribe it if they knew.
It's hard to know if the drugs led to Rachel taking her life or not. Her inquest simply recorded her cause of death as suicide. But I feel I've got to find out more about the risks to teenagers.
Could we really be giving out these pills to thousands of children that aren't just ineffective, but are possibly really, really dangerous? Could that really be true?
Drug trials not only test a drug's effectiveness, but should also look for any harms they could cause. They're often run by the pharmaceutical companies themselves, though. So I've come to North Wales to meet someone more independent.
Hi.
David,
How are you?
hi. Thanks
Go on
very
through.
much for seeing me.
Yep.
Dr. David Healy is a psychiatrist who's devoted 2 decades to researching the safety of the drugs he prescribes.
What's the key to understanding the harms done by these drugs?
What you have to do is you have to get to see the raw data behind the trial. And then you've got a chance of being able to work out what actually happened in the trial, what the good points behind the drug were, because there are some good points, and what the problems were.
The raw data is the detail of how a drug affects every patient in a scientific trial.
How easy is it to get hold of the raw data? How much raw data do we have for kids on antidepressants?
The only drug for which any raw data has been analysed is actually Seroxat.
Starting in 2004, a series of court cases questioned the published science supporting the drug Seroxat. The manufacturers were forced to open their files, and Dr. Healy and his team could examine how an antidepressant affects individual teenagers for the first time.
No one else ever has been able to get hold of the raw data. That's just 1 week of a healthy volunteer trial. If you're looking at 300 patients going through an 8-week trial, you might have 77,000 pages.
Wow. And what did that data then show?
Well, the original article, which was a 10-page article, had said the drug worked wonderfully well in this clinical trial and was extraordinarily safe. When we looked at it, we found that the drug didn't work, and the other aspect to it was anything but safe. In the first article, the authors had talked about some children becoming emotionally labile. When you looked behind the data, this meant the kids were becoming suicidal.
Really?
And not only that, there were 3 times more children becoming suicidal than the first article had even hinted about.
Research by Dr. Healy and others helped bring about a ban in prescribing Seroxat to under 18s in the UK. And its makers, GlaxoSmithKline, were ordered to pay $3 billion in penalties and fines for healthcare fraud.
What you need to appreciate is there's the published articles, there's the raw data, and in between there's a bunch of company reports which give you something closer to the raw data, and from those company reports it becomes clear that in the case of all the trials done in kids, that these drugs simply don't work for kids who are depressed, and that in every case the drugs cause more children to become suicidal on the active treatment than on placebo.
That's quite a strong claim. Can you back that up?
If what I was telling you was wrong, I'd be sued. I'd be out of business. They would sue the living daylights out of me. They haven't, because they know what I'm saying to you is exactly right.
If you're a young person taking antidepressants, it can be dangerous to suddenly stop. But if what Dr. Healy is saying is true, shouldn't we be more urgently questioning why nearly 60,000 under 18-year-olds are being prescribed these drugs? I'm in Warrington to meet the clinical lead for child and adolescent mental health services across all of Greater Manchester, Dr. Sandeep Renaud.
Hi, thanks very much for seeing me.
You're very welcome. Do come in.
Where should I go? Just over here?
Yes, absolutely.
From the experts that I've spoken to and looking at the evidence myself, it seems like antidepressants as a group of drugs, when used in children, there's not much evidence they work very well, and there's some well-founded concerns about harm. Do you think we are cautious enough about them?
So, specifically talking about depression in young people, we would always practice the NICE guidance. So we do have one medication that has some good evidence in the field when used with psychological therapies, fluoxetine, which people will have previously known as Prozac. But it's not in isolation, and it is absolutely not the first thing you would do. What our responsibility is as medical professionals in the field, I took my Hippocratic Oath to do this, is to be open, to be honest. This is our NICE guideline, this is the research in the field. How do you feel, what do you feel, and help to facilitate them making the best possible choice.
So you mentioned the Hippocratic Oath. Obviously, one of the things as doctors we all have to do is do no harm first. Bearing in mind that we are quite concerned about some potentially serious harms of these drugs when used in children, and that we think the alternatives, you know, music therapy, creative arts, mindfulness, I don't think anyone seriously believes that they have a risk of increased suicidal thought. It doesn't feel like we're getting that balance right as a medical community.
Absolutely. We need to be open-minded in continuing to research the whole suite of interventions. But medication shouldn't be shoved away as we never do that. What I'm saying is that we do have a framework, and NICE guidance is that framework, and it's a good framework in terms of a guidance. It's not a mandate, it's a guideline, and it's formed on the best available evidence that we have.
What Dr. Renaud's saying is that the reason we prescribe antidepressants in this way to children is because it's in the national guidelines, and those guidelines are built on the best available evidence. And that's the crux of my problem with this, is that the best available evidence, in my view, isn't very compelling. And there are real concerns about serious side effects. So if we want to avoid doing harm, surely we should be prioritizing those treatments that we don't believe carry the same level of risk.